All right, welcome to Political Voice today. I'm Moses Humphrey. Now, the Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State, has approved the mass burial of at least 103 protesters who were killed by the joint forces of the Nigerian Army and the police during the October 2020 mass protest against police brutality. It was tagged hashtag #EndSARS. Now, in a letter dated July 19, the state government engaged the service of TOS Funeral Limited, a private firm, at a cost of 61,285,000 to bury the 103 bodies which were identified to be victims of the killings of the NSAS. Now, the letter read in part, um, following review of your request and based on the information provided therein, the agency has no objection to the award of contracts to Mrs. TOS Funerals Limited at a total cost of 61,285,000 naira only for the mass burial of the 103 the year 2020 NSAS victims. Now, the letter read, this move comes almost 3 years after Governor Sanwo-Olu and other officials of the Lagos state government boldly denied the brutal killing of unarmed protesters who were waving the Nigerian flag and chanting the national anthem when the military opened fire at the Lekki tollgate on October 20, 2020. Well, I do have with me, joining me virtually, of course, is a security expert, Dr. Hassan Sadiq. Good morning to you, Dr. Hassan.
Yeah, good morning for having me.
All right, good
Yes,
morning.
good morning.
Now let's look at this. Now it's been 3 years after, and we've had denials upon denials. There was a panel set up. Some people were compensated. Those who put up their case before the panel as to cases of police brutality, some people got compensation, but the fact that people were killed at the Lekki tollgate was still a bone of contention. That was still in denial. Now, these bodies, Lagos State government has come out to say that the 103 bodies were not, recorded at the Lekki tollgate. But research and more findings have revealed that in as much as 99 of those bodies were picked up from different locations in Lagos, um, some of them, some of them were picked up from the toll gate. What was your take when you heard this story? What came to your mind first off? Let's start with that.
Yes, thank you for having me and the viewers. If before the executive governor of Lagos State had denied that there was no mass killing, as was alleged before, and now he has even awarded the contract for mass burial for 103 people at the tune of 61 point something million for the burial arrangement. I think it is onus on him now, the state government, to explain the numbers of these dead bodies, what is the burial meant for, what killed them, and what happened. That now you are to pay so state money, taxpayer money to do. It is when he cannot prove beyond reasonable these people that were now paying for the burial connections with the people who are protesting at the NSAS, then fine. If you could not, then there's no justification that those dead bodies, they are the people that were killed by the NSAS protest during the saga that happened at that time. So if he is saying that before there was none, then he has to prove to the state because he's been elected by the people and he is answerable to the people. Then let him now tell the caution that these numbers of people that were using the taxpayer money are not the answers that were the victim of answers. So I think it's only on him to prove it out.
No, the thing is that yes, the answers when the protest escalated, There were killings at the toll gate. Well, the purported killings at the toll gate, and also there were killings at different parts of Lagos. Now, because there were destruction of properties, I know for sure. I was at that time. I was driving along Adekunle Road because as a pressman, I could still move around. I was driving along Adekunle Road in Yaba, and there were gunshots fired just behind me. It took. I was scared at some point. Gunshots were fired. I saw people drop. Streets. Some guys on the street trying to create trouble were dropping. Now it's been said that some of these killings were perpetrated. Some of these bodies, rather, were picked up from different locations in Lagos, not just the toll gate. Now, but the fact still remains that there were killings. The fact remains that there were killings, and we also have a report by the pathologist at Lasut. I'm trying to get the name of the person now. Who said that these bodies, when they were brought to the hospital, the majority of them had bullet wounds. So that is to show that these killings were done by people with guns. And who were the people with guns? They were the police people, the policemen, and the army, and the military. Basically, the military. They had guns on them. So what? Yes. Okay, so now, the chief pathologist of the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, Lasut, Professor John Obafunwa, testified before the panel of inquiry that at least 99 bodies were deposited in morgues across Lagos from the NSAS protest, with several of them carrying bullet wounds, some blunt trauma, and some bruises. Now, this is taken from the reports. Now, shouldn't the state government tell Nigerians why lethal weapon was used to ward off those that were fomenting trouble? Aren't there other measures when there is a riot? Aren't there other measures that could have been used to, chase away or scare away the perpetrators as against the use of live ammunition?
Yes, this issue of NSAS, especially if you are referring to tollgate, is a bit, I call it political connotations and certain interests. Now, if these dead bodies were recovered across Lagos State, which means it is not in one location that these people were being killed and the dead body. Now, can we now also ascertain that during the time of NSAS, is it only at the toll gate the actions of the NSAS is taking place live, which people call it is a peaceful demonstrations? Now, if it is not only that place, then we can now also establish that possible other places where NSAS demonstrating, then there's also killing there. Then cumulatively, if you bring it together, you can now say this is what happened. Because the argument all along that even the government, the people have been arguing over law enforcement was that the numbers of people they are talking did not die at that toll gate. So that is why we need to establish the toll gate. It is the only at the toll gate point that the NSAS, the people come together and they were doing a peaceful demonstrations, or that demonstrations also take place in other parts of Lagos. Then so that on that basis, we'll be able to have a lot of evidence as against the state that this was what happened. Because Lagos is a cosmopolitan state in Nigeria. Every day I will tell you that there's a lot of criminal element going on. There's even killing every day, that someone must die either as a result of one thing or the other in Lagos. That the law enforcement has to take them to mortuary and now what is the cause of the death. So you will not take that away again. All this has to be established so that at that point you'll be able to have a justification to say, look, the government, the people, the agency who are responsible for bearing arms has now used live ammunition as against the citizens. That is why I said the 103 today were all these people are people allegedly killed by the law enforcement at the toll gate or the domestic
Now, the issue
place
still
across
remains.
all the Lagos,
The issue still
because it is key to
remains.
establish this.
All right. Well, the issue still remains that there were still talks about the military taking away bodies. Now, those that were at the toll gate, with video evidence, with videos that came out on social media, we heard gunshots. All right. From the videos, we saw people dropping. We saw people tied with clothes and all of that. We saw the Nigerian flag used in carrying other people. It was stained. Video evidence. Now, we also heard that the police, the military rather, took away some bodies from the Lekki toll gate itself, and then they prevented ambulances from getting to the area, which made it even more difficult for those that were affected to receive treatment, which also made it difficult for records to be taken as to who and who were affected and when were they affected and where were they affected, because ambulances could not get in. All right, so those that were injured could not receive treatment. Now, these allegations, nobody has come out to openly refute some of these allegations, and the panel that was set up to look at the activities of the police and police brutality at that time, they've concluded investigations. Some people have been compensated for that. All right. We'll in the course of the program, we'll look at some of the compensations that were some of the compensations given to people. But the fact still remains that if record has it, or if allegations were thrown up that the military prevented ambulances from getting to this area, how then can we really say that we have facts as to those that died?
Yes, you have just mentioned one critical area. You said the army took some dead body away. Now, if army has taken some dead body away, and they were also now preventing ambulance not to get into the scene of the actions, which the ambulance will have been able to evacuate some of them and rush them to hospital, possible some of them could have survived. So already on this basis of what you said, it's already because the inquiry that was set up are the one now to take all these evidences across and making sure that they come up with a true reflections of what has actually happened at that very day and that moment. Because if you prevent army, if army prevents the ambulances not to come there, those ambulances, those hospitals are still there. It's not that those ambulances were born and where you cannot recognize them again. So they are the one now to testify also with the panel that as at the time this is the information we got, and this is what we do, and this is what the army now prevented us. Now, if the state government also has went far to start paying compensations, which means there's already an certification that yes, social clean has taken place. Because if that has not taken place, what are you now paying compensation for? So all these to me are evidences which has proved what happened at that very moment and at that very day. So there's no way the Lagos government can now come and say they are not happened or not.
All right,
It cannot exonerate themselves.
Let me take this. Let me take.
But the point I'm trying to make is that yes, for you to make a case against the state, you must be able to have your clear-cut evidence where the state himself know the one who is responsible for the state activities. It is not that it is a ghost. Ghost does not run the state. It is individual, the society, are the one who is the helm of affair.
Dr. Hassan.
Yes.
Dr. Hassan, let me take. Let me read some of the reports by the panel. Now we hear that the judicial panel affirmed that the casualty of the incident was worsened because the army refused to allow ambulances and medical help to get to injured protesters who were in need of them. Now, the panel, this is from the panel. Now, the panel also added that the army stole the corpse of the protesters and wiped blood stains off the scene to hide evidence of its crime and hinder the investigation of the panel. Now, this is as documented by the panel that was set up to look into the NSAS activity. All right. This is as documented by the panel. And this, of course, was gotten after cross-examination of parties involved. Now, some years after, we now hear that, okay, somebody's are going to be given a mass burial. Now, these bodies, now we also do remember that some individuals, we don't have the record of it now, but we have seen, I don't know if you did see also, in some reports of some individuals, some parents that came out to say, look, their children are missing. They don't know where their wards are, where their children are. They have been missing right after the NSAS incident. Now, will the government allow these parents to now identify these bodies? Will they be able to identify these bodies to say, okay, this was where, oh, this is the last time I know my child, this is the last place I knew my child went to? Would they be given, would they even be able to recognize the corpses when they see them? Shouldn't they be given, shouldn't the family members be given the right to bury their own dead if they're dead, if the death of their loved ones happened, around the NSAS incident and the tollgate itself?
Yes, given this clear evidence, the state government cannot bury any citizens without the consent of the family because they are not destitute. If it is a destitute or a madman who died at one thing or the other, it becomes the state's responsibility. If those mad people, whatever, the destitute does not have a family who can now come and recognize. Because today, our traditions also allow how you want your wards to be buried, not just because the state is in charge that they can just decide to take it and bury it. But now the government cannot say, come and identify the dead body and their families and all that. So before the government, they proceed in terms of this burial will take place, they also have to allow to come and identify. Then if these people were among, that's why I said it in the fall, that the government need now to say, what is the result of this mass burial? If the government, as at that time, is denying no mass killing, then what is this burial? What is the result of the death of this mass burial today? Then if it's from the NSAS, then that is a justification that yes, the government cannot shy away that certain government agency has done the wrong thing. So I think the government will not just go ahead and start burying them without not the family of those who are claiming that they've never seen their family since the NSAS protest and everything to come and identify the dead body. So if part of it among their family of those people who are today, the government is about to bury. That is one. Two, since that year till today, is it also still possible, which I don't know except from the medical, can they still be recognized if you see them? Because which means since that time, they've been in the mortuary for over more than 1 year now. For how many years? They've been in the mortuary. So can they still that you can be able to identify your own relative or whatever, the people that are being able to, who are dead now are to be buried? Yes.
All right, let's take a look at some compensation that the panel, the panel that the government set up to compensate those victims of police brutality. Let's have it on our screen. We do have some of them actually. A few of them gotten from some papers. Yes, this is one individual, name given as Adebayo Abayomi. He was given 10 million naira. And it said that this is a person whose mother was killed by police bullets. All right, he's an individual whose mother, his mother was shot dead by police bullets, during that period. There are others actually that we cannot put up right now. Now this brings the question of, yes. So there you have a uh, well, that's, yes, it's the same one actually. Now there's another here. Abuja NSAS panel awards another 289 million compensation to victims of police brutality. Now, we've been talking about police brutality for a long time. We've been talking about the use of weapons by the police. We've seen police right after NSAS. It didn't seem to stop there. It seemed to have continued. Now, SARS was banned, all right, but it didn't seem to hinder or prevent some police officials. We do say some because we know that there are good policemen, but the whole incident did not prevent some police personnel from maltreating individuals before before any charge is placed on them. What do you make of that? And as you do respond, what do you think would be the best way to handle or to curb police brutality?
Yes, if you are looking at the police brutality, I think that is one aspect of responsibility that the current IG needed to look at. I, for one, I have said it several times on platform that the most uncourtesy uniform men we have in Nigeria who bear arms are police are number one. In the sense is that if you watch the police today, a lot of people, officers who are being recruited in the police, most of them, we have the good one, most of them look at it as an end to a means of their survival. It is not a job that they ever wanted to do, but because society has pushed them, they have nothing to do. That is why they look at police as a last resort, which you now look at it, despite the training and all that, then they still come out and misbehave and look at it. Some of them even act in a manner as if they are above the law. But you have a quite a decent police people who work within the ambit of the law that established them. The things I can suggest is that it is for us to redefine the kind of police system that we needed to have, the kind of training that the police need to go through, this time with our own society, so that we can have a balanced society within the police and the people. Because if you look at it today, I've said it that if you're a policeman, you went to an arrest, you went there with an arms, you don't need to use a harsh voice. It is when the person now refuses not to comply, that you can now enforce the person. But in such a way, just like even when you are on a highway or police stop you today, the next thing you see is the manner with they are going to park, and talk to you in a manner that it is not as if you're not a human being just because they are wearing uniform and all that. It is uncourtesy. So I think training and a better welfare will be able to improve the kind of police that we needed today. I give you a typical example. If people are traveling now, and maybe you are driving on your personal car, you see a police probably is waiting to have a car. Nobody wants to pick them. People will just leave them and go, simply because of the manner and the behavior that our police portrayed as against the citizens they are supposed to be protected. That is why they become a rejected agent in society, where a lot of people don't even want their children to go into police. That is all. Again, it is time to increase the intellectual capacity of the kind of officers we are going to employ, even from lowest rank. If it were using secondary school, I think to me, we should no longer use that level to employ a low-ranking officer of the police. It should be somebody with a diploma minimum. For you to be a police constable or whatever, if you have the minimum qualifications of a diploma, because being able to change your psyche, your thinking, your thoughts about the police system. Then we'll now look at the syllabus of Nigerian police that they are using today as a training.
Because if police be now recruit, you have to go to training. It is after training, then you now be posted and you now be commissioned as a police officer. We also need to look at the syllabus that are being used to train them in college. So that when we now change the syllabus should be a police that is interested in the safety of his people, not after his people. So these are the syllabus that we need. If we don't have that, we have to design a new syllabus that can be used to train the police. Yes. Two, I need to look at, because certain times the police behave in a manner just simply because of lack of welfare, enough welfare that cater for them. You see some police today, they are on the duty. I have asked several questions. I said, who pay for their going to duty? If in the night, most of those police who normally be on checkpoint in the night, how did they get there and how did they get back home? Because that is operation. What in the military, if you are not going on operation, there is a vehicle who will take you to operations. In fact, in some cases, their kitchen will bring food for you while you are in your duty post. Does the police have that? Why can't we introduce that to our police? Because this will now go a long way. If you now say the police should be on a checkpoint, now you know that you have given him a way to extort the public for even logistics to come to work and go back. Because he did not make provisions. How is he going to get to work? How is he going to get to his post duty? But you are expecting him to be there and stopping the car and be checking them. You will now see that if the police does not provide the logistics that get him there, he's going to extort the public to be able to see that he's returning back home is guaranteed and he's coming back the following day is also guaranteed. So we needed to look at all this structure in terms of the syllabus, how to change it so that the syllabus can be in line with the reality of our society to have a different mindset of a police system. I think this is one way I think we can be able to change that police system in Nigeria than to continue with the current one we have.
All right,
that is
so
why I said it's one of the areas the current IG need to look at deeply.
All right, you talked a lot about welfare, police welfare, and the lack of it, and how this can make them feel aggrieved and anger, and make them take this anger out on people, forgetting that these people are taxpayers. The majority of these people, or the parents of these people, are taxpayers. It is the same taxpayers' money that is used that's used to pay the police. So the people they attack basically are the ones paying them. All right. Now, we have also, after the NSAS, we talked about police brutality. We talked about how they relate to people. We talked about the use of cameras, body cams. How come that has not been introduced? You are an expert, a security expert. Why is it that our police personnel do not have body cameras that will depict the confrontation that they claim they have with people that they try to arrest or apprehend on the roads? Why don't we have that? Wouldn't that even make them cautious in their actions?
It is bordering on the police management. When I mean by police management, if you talk of the IG, the DIG, the AIG, and police service commissions, even to the extent of Ministry of Police are here, it is bordering on them. Today, I will tell you categorically that a lot of police you see in the street, they buy their uniform. They buy their boots, they buy their uniform. So if police is already spending their personal money from the meager salary they are collecting to even equip and kit themselves, how do you now expect them now to should start using camera? Then there's no any that the top rank has now provided the camera, body camera, that when you're on duty you must wear it. I don't think any police will now go without not wearing it, because at times you see a senior police officer on a mufti who is just on the way going. Then you'll be able to see people on the road who are checkpoint who does not use the body camera. Because when the IG introduced that, it's also going to have what we call a police that is in themselves, and mystery staff, which are mystery officer, who you don't know that this person is a senior police officer who is on a patrol also, but you might not know that when you now met them on the checkpoint, you see behavior and their actions. By the time the IG introduce all these things, you will now see that the officer who is on duty is going to behave in a manner that is in accordance with the rule has been laid down and been given to them. But when the top rank did not provide that, we will not be able to expect that. In any police system, let me give it to you as a security expert. It is top to bottom approach. It's a central command. When you now give command, they will take it. But before they were adherence, you must take responsibility. The police have to take responsibility from the top, providing what they needed. It is when you now provide it, the men who are on the feet, on the front line, they will follow suit. But when you don't provide it, then you allow loophole. Some of them will now take advantage of the loophole that did not provide those responsibility. Then they can do otherwise for their personal interest. So for them not to use it is on the police management. It is not the officers on the duty on the road who are not ready to use it, because you have not given it to them, you have not mandated that they needed to use it.
All right, now let's look at errant officers, how they are punished. What are the punitive measures given to errant officers? What we see the most is dismissal. I mean, what we hear the most is dismissal. You hear that an officer opened fire at somebody, he's taken to, he's court-martialed, and next thing is maybe his rank is reduced in rank or he's dismissed. That doesn't seem like enough punishment for some of these crimes. Shouldn't we look at another form of punishment that will make them sit up and say, okay, I should do better? Excuse me. Because we even hear cases where policemen with a gun telling somebody else will say, look, I will shoot you and nothing will happen. Is this a Nigerian thing or is there something else wrong? Please help me make sense of it.
Yes, I'm happy with these questions you just raised, because as a security expert, about 3 to 4 years I've drafted the new, what I call national security policy, which I've submitted to the government. We are looking at this government to be able to accept this policy and start implementing them. One area that I've mentioned there in terms of all the arms-bearing forces, not only the police, but Army, Navy, Air Force, DSS, Civil Defense, Custom, Immigrations, all arm-bearing forces, that if you have trained an officer with money how to use arm and handle arms, and the person now went and committed a certain offense, either on duty or not on duty, and you just dismiss the person, you are doing more harm to the system. Because I victim that I was attacked on a highway, and for you to shoot a moving object and you get the tire, meaning that you have been trained on how to use, because an ordinary person cannot have that systemic approach precise for you to hit an object and you. Now, I've now mentioned it in the, that what you think we needed to do, if an officer that has been trained to bear arms committed any offense, don't just give a total dismissal. They should be jailed for that punishment, for that offenses they've committed. But after that time, they should pay their entitlement and whatever. And you said you are dismissing them, so that they will now have a remorse, thinking that if they did not do anything and they were able to be in the services and they retire, so what they could have get is more. I'm saying so because of our current, simply because the insecurity we're having today. You have had the cases where the bandits, the Boko Haram, are being trained by some of these people the government has used the taxpayer to train them in terms of bearing arms. But simply because some of them has had one issue or the other and they were being dismissed, they now went against and become against the system. So on that backdrop, to me, I am already proposing that government should not just dismiss any arm-bearing officer who has committed offense. They should go for jail. They should go for the punishment that has been laid down. If the punishment today is not enough in terms of the civil populace, we will look at the kind of a law that we are going to melt on the officers who have bear arms and committed any offense. Instead of just dismiss, let him go for that punishment for a jail term. After the jail term, all his entitlement can be paid. Then he can go back to society and be a better person.
I think there's something called, I think, disbarment or something. I don't know the exact term for it now, whereby a retired officer or an officer that has been let off gets paid a certain amount which covers the oath that they sign. I mean, I want to believe that there's an oath that they sign whereby they will not use the what they have learned under the Nigerian army or the police to work against the military. I thought there's something that covers that, isn't it?
Well, if there is, I'm not acquainted details about it. But what I am suggesting, that people you have trained to handle arms, if they committed an offense, just dismiss them. Let them go and serve the punishment by like a jail term. So that they, okay, today, our prison now is no longer a prison, it's now correctional services. So that they can be corrected. But when they are now corrected, as they come out, then you can now pay them their entitlement and whatever, then they can now go. Then so from there, they now have a rethink. But if you said that, yes, there's already a note, they already there on the ground.
No,
but
you are an expert. You are an expert. You are in that field. I'm asking you the question now. Is there no oaths that they sign? Is there nothing that they sign? And look, if I leave the force today, I will not use what I have learned in the force to work against the nation or the force itself.
No.
Is there nothing like that?
No, I think we get it wrong. It's just like you declare emergency on an area. If today the government now come and said, I'm declaring emergency on education or in agriculture, it is what we call political statement.
Okay.
Now for anybody today to say an oath of allegiance, it is just a statement that you made for you to assume that office, but that has not reflect on the actions, the practicality, and how do you actualize that. So the only way that can come in is to now have another form of punishment when you now go against it. If an officer has already taken a note during the time on the training before he's been commissioned that he will never take any arms as against the state, and he now went during his course of, he committed an offense and was being laid off, and he now went and carried arms and as against the state. So how do you connect that? So the oath you take is meant that you made by assuming the office. But for you to hold you accountable is to make sure there will be punishment is going to be laid. That if you do this, this is what is going to happen to you. Today, if an ordinary person carry arms and you don't have the license, you have to be arrested and you'll be jailed for that. In most cases, it's 2 years. If a civilian is to be in a weapon, the position today, there are particular firearm you are supposed to be in a position, not just a high class or high power firearm. So this has to be also applied to most of our agency, the military officers, all uniform officers who bear arms. That look, if you now committed any offense, you are for this. And when you come out of jail, your entitlement will still be paid to you. But what I know currently happening is outright dismissal without no compensations. So you can now see when you give them an outright dismissal, on that basis, they will go against and take a firearm against the oath they have been sworn in office. Just like any other political office holder who swear that his intentions and everything would be in light in state, not his personal. But when they were there, they've done so many things that is wrong. But it is when the law now catch upon that person, the person now face the music. So the same way I am now proposing, it should also be applied to the arm-bearing officers of Nigerians of agency today, so that will be able to help them to behave well, to be able to see that, look, if I do this, I'm also going to jail, as every other citizen will go to jail. Not because he's a uniform officer, after all, they will just dismiss me. No, it shouldn't be so. It's just like the same thing in a lawyer. If a lawyer knew that if he committed any certain things, the judge would jail you. Despite you think you are a barrister, you are a lawyer, then you are not entitled to go to jail. No, that clause should be removed. So as an expert, I think at the current reality we are today, based on the level of insecurity, the character of the drivers of our security agency, this should be applied so that there's no anybody that is above the law, even if you are the one to enforce the law.
All right, let me drag this a little bit further now. I don't know if you're aware of what happened in Benin City not too long ago, some weeks back actually, where a man was arrested, handcuffed, and then placed in front of a police van, and the police van actually tried to run over him. Well, actually ran over him. All right, and it took the people around to prevent the police van from crushing the man to death. Now, when the issue came to the fore, came to the media, what we heard from the police chief in that state was that, oh, the man actually resisted arrest and tried to damage the police van. Now, that statement in itself would make one wonder if the fact that he maybe hit the police van or smashed something, or, if you say he resisted arrest, but the fact is he was handcuffed. Now, should we now say, okay, the fact that he placed his hands on the police van, does that now mean that the police van should run over him? Now, let's now look at the humanity of those that put on the uniform of the police. Let's join this together now. Now,
Yes.
as you respond, let's also tie it to the fact that this is coming after a time when Nigerians clamored for, when Nigerians spoke against police brutality, and some were compensated. All right, let's tie everything together now. Have we made progress at all?
If you ask me, we have not made progress, because in evolutions of human being, you expect a lot, and you can never separate evil from society. It's part of it, because they are also part of ecosystem, which you cannot divulge that out. They balance the ecosystem. Now, going back to the issue of the Benin, you can see that is why I am making this proposal in terms of in our new national security policy. If because you went to someone who has committed an offense or whatever, and the person, either you handcuff the person or you don't handcuff the person because the person hit the police van and you now want to cross, that is murder. On the civil cases, that you see someone standing and you decide to run into the person with your vehicle, attempted murder, you could see that. That is why I said such law will also apply to that officer. It is only when you now apply the same thing on the officers who is to enforce the law, that despite enforce the law, you are not excluded from the punishment of such. You can now see it is at that time you now see that the officers will now start behaving well, and because in an officer they act, there's a rule of engagement. They have to maintain the rule of engagement at the time of operations. Even in the military, they will tell you that there's a rule of engagement, carrying out the operations and all that. That is why international organizations will say you commit a war crime, simply because despite the war, there must be a rule. The same way locally here, you have to bring it to national and to local level in terms of officers who are operating. If you are to carry any out operations or whatever in a civil way or whatever, and you decided to put law into your hand just simply because you are a law officer, the same offenses should be met on you. You will now see that we will now apply that and making sure we tested it, then that time you will now see the progress we are going to make in terms of law enforcement in Nigeria, in our society.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Hassan Sadiq. Now let's bring it in again. Let's come back to the focus really, which is the 103 corpses to be buried, to be given mass burial, and the 61.2 million, a little over that, for the mass burial. Taxpayers' money, indeed. That's what it is. Now, a school of thought will argue that the police chief at the time, who has now been made a diplomatic envoy to Benin Republic, is being shielded from investigation. What do you make of that statement?
Well, if because first of all, you can sue a law officers who has committed such a crime to court. Then, if you said has been shielded, then those people who are now
that's
the case,
a school of thought. That's the mindset of some people, because right after he left office, he was given he was made a diplomatic envoy in Benin Republic. So some people are thinking, okay, this is probably a way to shield him from investigation.
No, I don't think that can shield anybody away from investigations. Because even today, you remember during Obasanjo as a democratic president, he set up a committee inquiry. He was invited and he went there. So before we can say he was shielded away simply because appointment was being given to him, another assignment, has he been invited and he refuses not to come, it is at that level we can you have not been, because today in our law, even if you're an ambassador, that does not indicate you cannot be invited for interrogations or whatever, because ambassador does not have immunity by our law today. So I will not say that appointment is being given to him simply because it's to shield him away. People in the course of their services, they've done diligently, and also they've done certain things that is wrong. So my point and understanding that if you do well, the government must recognize you. And if you do wrong, you must also be punished, so that we can be able to separate the good and the bad and the because if an officer has done pretty well in the course of his duty, and simply because there's one act that he did, then we have not able to ascertain what is level of involvement. Like the person you are talking about, to say it here, is the former chief of army staff, but he was not the GOC of Lagos, because a chief of army staff is in Lagos, in Abuja headquarters here. Why in our divisions we have military information where you have the GOC battalion of all that. During that time happened, who give the GOC commander to bring out the troops? They are also responsible for security and everything, because as an army, you must take a command. You cannot just take an actions or certain things. Even if you are to take, it's within your own level. So this is where, to me, the investigation will now start from, because sometimes there are uniform officer who takes the law into their hand without not even taking a permissions and order from the above. They decide to do it within their own purview. So these are areas we needed to look at it first of all, before we now said the top was being covered. Because if you don't have this detail, it is possible during that time, he did not tell the GOC there to do that. And the GOC went out and did it in his own volutions. So you cannot set the top here to be punished for that. Why he was not the one who ordered that? Because right, they have a channel of communication.
Buratai was not the the GOC of Lagos, but we also do know that the GOC would have taken instruction from somewhere. Do you really believe that the GOC in Lagos at the time would deploy men to the toll gate and other parts of the state without information from the top? Does the military work that way?
You see, in military operations, it depends on the level of insecurity at that time. There are certain level of insecurity taking place. You don't need to start getting in touch with the commander-in-chief before you take a certain actions, because that is why you are there. If it's in the level of everything, because some actions has to be in the written, and the written has to transmit before you get back. And what of at that time, commander-in-chief is not available, or one thing or the other, you cannot even get in touch. So we need to also ascertain in the operations what level of insecurity that a GOC has to take without not necessarily getting in touch with commander-in-chief. It is simple. I think this thing, I keep on saying that with time, we need to also involve in security educations, so that the security education will be able to inform the general public how the operations and all that to a level. Yes, what are the synergy that you expected from security officers? Do you understand now? I have had experience where I call the police van on the road that, look, there are so on this bridge, we have this issue. I'm not here, I don't have arms. If we can go there, I'm ready to go with you. But the policeman told me that the fuel he has in the car here will only take him back to the office. So except if I can go back to the command and make a formal report before they can now deploy people. Before then, the criminal there has already taken off. You could see the level of operations, where ideally, why are you taking the car that does not have a fuel? So these are the way that we needed to know that we have to have this imbibe the security educations to be able to know at what point, At that level, I only look at it that police officer in some cases need to be removed because he's not ready to do the work. So these are the things we need to know. Yes. So at that level, we cannot say that the GOC did not take order from above or he take, because what is the level of insecurity and what kind of arm and ammunition you are to deploy at that time, because there's a riot police. You remember that even in the army, we have military police.
Yeah.
The same way we have air police, the same way we have naval police. There are cases where it is duty of military police. It is not even the artillery at that time, because the issue on ground is a peculiar issue, and you also need to deploy the experts on that area. So these are things that we needed to know before we can now say this is what happened. The central command, it was the one who commanded the GOC to do that, or even commander-in-chief, it was the one who acted in that manner. I'm not supporting government neither. I've said it at that time when this ends. I said Sanwo-Olu does not have the power to command the armed forces. He
So
can't do
does?
it.
Who
Yes,
does?
because he's the state civilian. He cannot command it. Yes.
Okay.
So sometimes we need to understand it before
So
we now
who
say.
does? Who has the
this
power?
person-
Who had the power? Who had the power?
Well, if you are saying who has the power, you all know today that once you are a president, you are the commander-in-chief, meaning you command all armed forces, including the police, the DSS. So, in fact, if today President Tinubu went into any governor house today with the police guiding the governor, that police will take order from the president because that his commander has come. If you tell him that took me to your the governor his room, he has no choice than to say he walking straight because his commander is there, is taken. He can decide today to stop on the road and collect any arms from any officer he feel he has not acted well, because this is your commander-in-chief.
All right then. Well, with your response, I think it's left to us to count our teeth with our tongue from your response. And I must say a very big thank you to you, Dr. Hassan Sadiq. Thank you for coming on the program.
Okay, thank you so much. My pleasure. Yes.
All right, well, this is the situation of things. 103 to be given mass burial, and Lagos State government says these bodies were not gotten from the tollgate. They were gotten from other parts of Lagos State. Oh, well, we also do know that the state government will issue a letter, we issue a report to this regard. We'll keep our finger on this one, and it's a conversation that will be ongoing because questions are still coming up as to who and who, sent the military to the toll gate, who and who deployed men into the streets. Oh, well, this is an ongoing conversation. When will we bring it to an end? I don't know for sure. Well, that's the show today. This is Political Voice, which will make a return same time tomorrow. I'm Moses Humphrey. Have a good day.